Okay, we're going to work on this 2015 Beta 300 RR Race Edition. Belongs to Jerry. And what we're going to try to fix is he's got some issues back here. Let's see if I can get it on the video. Well, there we go. I can move this back wheel up and down because one of the bearings in the linkage is in not good shape. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, you're pretty strong. So I think the bearing that's bad is this upper one up in here. But we're going to pull all this apart. We're going to lube it up, get it straight. I think I'm going to go ahead and pull the swing arm off as well, if I can figure that out. I haven't worked on one of these linkage bikes before, so it might be a little tricky, but I think it should be pretty self-explanatory. Once we get going down in here, start taking bolts and stuff loose, pull the back wheel off, and we'll make it work. The other thing I'm going to try to do for him is put a new O-ring in this. He's got that bling cap on there, and it leaks like a sieve. So,
like my water, like.
Yeah. So.
Like some of my water, sometimes it spills.
It sometimes spills?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna see if we can't fix that for him. That's probably all I'm gonna work on. We did the front suspension before. And the bike hasn't got many hours on it since we did the front suspension. I'm going to work on his odometer up here to see if I can find out how many hours is actually on this bike. If I can figure that out, then I'll put that on the video as well. So, let's go over here and
get some new
we'll look at all these parts.
Yeah, look at all the parts. I got 3.
Okay, so we bought a bearing linkage kit that comes from Moose.
Yeah, like with these heavy things.
It comes with all kinds of parts. Go ahead and put them back on there, Trey. I got my helper out here today. So, all these parts come in this kit. It's a whole lot of them. Several seals. Those are all the same part number. A couple sets of bearings that are the same part number. The end pieces for the bearings and the sleeves. So pretty sure that the only bearing that's bad in his bike is this one right here. This is the upper linkage triangle point. So, and then his kickstand was broken, and one of his buddies had one off of his Beta, so we're going to put that on. I'll clean that up before I put that back on. So that's our project for today. So the bike has 2,600 miles, 2,616 miles, and 154 hours. And we're going to do this bearing back here. So anyway, we got that figured out. We got the wheel off. Axle's pretty grody. It was tough getting that out of there.
Yeah, this.
Yeah, so we're going to clean that axle off.
Yeah, because it's so dirty.
Yeah, we'll take that, put it on a wire wheel, and clean it up. So this bike had this thing here that was for the chain. I mean, it was kind of street bike oriented. Had like a chain guard up on top, and it was broken, and it hung down here, and it hooked onto this bolt. Anyway, when we last rode this bike, we noticed that was broken and it was getting into the chain, so we basically just cut it off in the field. But I just dressed it up and removed the rest of it. This extra chain guide here, I just took that off, and the piece that's underneath here is what, and this was part of the broken piece, but I put it back on because it all kind of needs it for the bolt lengths and everything. So this piece is just there for spacing. This piece underneath here is just there for spacing. And then this piece is a sort of an extension to the chain guide. So I figured that was all good. Keeps the swing arm from getting chewed up. But this piece that hung down here and the piece that was up here on the top, I just didn't think those were necessary, and it was broken anyway. We don't have them on KTMs, we don't have them on any of the other bikes, so I just took it off. And so we'll leave that off.
I'm spinning.
So now we're going to remove the swing arm and the linkage stuff and see if we can work on those bearings. And I got my helper here. He's doing a lot of help. He's spinning on the chair and doing all kinds of stuff. I've got the linkage bolts out. This one is the one that was definitely bad, and I had to drive that bolt out. That's what it looks like. And there was a washer on the end here, and that washer amounts to those broken pieces that you see in there. And here's the link, and that top bearing is completely rusted away. I mean, it is beyond shot. The other two, I'm not sure. I'm gonna, take all the stuff out and see what we find. But yeah, this thing had been really bad for a really long time. So routine maintenance is required on these linkage bikes. I'd say at least once a year, if not more often. You should be taking this stuff apart and greasing it. I mean, this bike's got 150 hours on it, 2,600 miles, and that link bearing's been bad for a while. So anyway, the swing arm feels nice, but I'm going to go ahead and pull it off since I'm this far into it, and I'm going to lube up that bearing anyway. And then probably this link arm here, I'll go ahead and pull that off up there. Looks like its washer's broken too. I don't know what it is with these beta washers that they use. They must be really cheap things. Anyway, I'll find washers to put back in those places. But yeah, I'll pull that one off and lube it. You can see this. There's a big gouge right there where that linkage is hit on a rock. I'll have to smooth that out. Yeah, definitely some maintenance required on this old bike. So it's always fun what you find once you clean stuff up. This is the bolt that went through the bearing that was shot. You can see there's grooves worn into it, so this bolt can't be reused. It's garbage. And then the washer that I thought broke is actually the flange that was on this bolt. That flange broke off. So yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. But this bolt is going to have to be replaced. So I guess I'll go down to Ace Hardware and see if they got any metric bolts this size. Otherwise, this project's going to be delayed because I don't have a bolt. I can put this back in just temporarily, but then I'll have to order a bolt for it. So yeah. So what happens when you let those bearings get that far gone. I had a CR500 once that I bought from a guy that let it go, and I mean the bearings were just, the bearings, the bolts, the sleeves, everything was so far gone. It's a miracle I could resurrect it, and it cost a lot of money just to fix all that. Alright, we got the swing arm off, and I'll probably see if I can't drop the shock down, but I don't know. The way they got that reservoir, whether it'll fit through here or not, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. It looks like it might. I'll take that off and I'll lube that top bushing on it. But I got the swing arm off, and the swing arm bolt, that's that one right there, it wasn't in too bad a shape, and there actually looked like there was plenty of grease in there. And I got the swing arm over here, and these bearings in here look pretty good so far. I'm going to pull the sleeves out and just put new grease in there and put them back in, and we'll call that one done. So it always gets more entertaining anytime you work on other people's bikes. So the washer that was down here, those broken pieces there, that isn't from a washer. Those broken pieces are from a sleeve that they press into the swing arm here, a steel sleeve. See that right there, that ridge? That's broken off. If you look on the other side of the swing arm, you see the collar I'm talking about. Okay, so that's actually pressed in to the swing arm. It's not part of the kit that you get when you buy these pieces. So anyway, that's a problem. And then, well, I'm about to lose everything here. What I thought was a lock washer is actually this flange that's supposed to go on this bolt. I was playing with it and I realized, oh my gosh, that actually goes up in there. So that is broken off. So yeah, that's what happens when you don't do enough routine maintenance on these. I'm not going to fault Beta. I don't know that, you know, it's cheap material or whatever. It could be, because I've never seen this kind of failure on anything else. But I haven't worked on a linkage bike in a long time. And I just know that linkage bikes, they require significantly more maintenance than the PDS bikes that the KTMs that we ride have. There's only just 2 pivots on a PDS. Well, you got the swing arm pivot, but you got where the shock mounts and at the top and the bottom. That's it. They're very simple to maintain. So anyway, heads up to all you guys with you know, linkage bikes. Do your maintenance or you'll have a lot more problems. I got the swing arm pieces out and re-greased those. They were actually in pretty good shape. So those are all ready to go back in, but I got to figure out what I'm going to do with this. Getting those sleeves might be a bit of a problem. So what I think I can do, because the sleeve that's in there, the steel part that's in there that it's preventing the wear, it's in decent enough shape. What I think I'm going to do is find a washer that's big enough, and I'll machine the hole out so that it fits over this, so it fits in, so that when this bolt goes, you know, tightens in there, it's got a flush washer to tighten against. And that should do the job that we need to do without having to replace that sleeve. So, because that sleeve's not part of any kit that you're going to get. Not that I know of. Alright, so I had a washer, and I went ahead and carved it out, and just slightly undersized, and there was enough of a shoulder sticking up on that sleeve that I was able to beat it on there, so it should stay on there, and it'll work. Alright, the shock absorber comes out of there. As soon as you take that top bolt out, you just kind of twist it, and it comes right out. Not a problem, but I don't think you could get the shock off unless you took the swing arm off. I don't think there's a big enough hole. Man, there might be in the swing arm over there to pull the shock down out of there. There might be. But anyway, that came right out. Look at the air box back in here. It looks okay. Don't see any cracks in it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull those sleeves out of the top of this shock and put a little grease in there and put this back up in there. So these little collars on this thing were pretty much a bitch to get in and out of there. They're different than what's on a KTM. They're definitely pressed in and they're not coming out. They got splines on them. It took quite a bit to knock them out of there and then put them back. Now that I got the shock off, one of the things that I found on the shock is the spring rate, and you can see it there. It's 5.2. So if Jerry wanted to get a stiffer spring, that he should go to the next one up, because you can see we got almost all the preload we can put into this one, and I'm sure that the spring rate that's on here is too light for his weight, and if he put the next stiffer spring on there, he'd be a much happier camper. I'm pretty sure of it. So I'm going to take this lower link off, and I'm noticing that this bolt, the flange on it, it's broken as well. Maybe Beta uses some really cheap Chinese bolts, I don't know. But that flange is broken. And over here, notice that this lower chain guide and this bolt, basically, they're right up against one another. It's freaking crazy. And that bolt is on there really tight. I'm gonna have to get a bigger wrench to pull it off, to get it loose. So anyway, that's coming off next. All right, so it turns out that that lower linkage bolt is a specially made bolt. That part is actually machined off the collar. And the reason for that is so when you pull the bolt out, the bolt won't clear the foot peg pivots unless that square edge is there. So you rotate it so that you can clear that. That's why that's there. So any of you Beta people out there that are wondering why that bolt's like that, that's why. Interesting. So the lower link, I re-greased it. The needle bearings in there, I mean, there was grease in there, but very little. And they were, the bearings, the needles were basically falling out until I put new grease and repacked them in there. So something you probably should look at, because that one didn't have much grease in there. Okay, so here's the link, and I got it cleaned up, but I gotta pop these bearings and stuff out. But here's the problem. You see right there where that's not been knocked in and it's no longer round? That's going to create a bit of an issue putting the new seals in and to put in the bearings, because it's no longer round. And same over here on this side. It's less damaged, but it's still not perfectly round, so that may create some issues when I go to knock the bearings in there. Yep, linkage bikes. You should buy linkage guards and put on them if you're going to ride in the rocks. If you're just going to motocross race it or ride out on tracks, it's not a big deal. But if you're going to ride the gnarly stuff that we ride, you are going to bash that stuff and you're going to damage it. And that's what's happened here. And that's the bearing that's going to have to be replaced. Well, maybe not. I think it's this one on the top. It's this one up here that I have to replace for sure. So this one I may be able to just knock those sleeves out, push the thing out, and if the bearings are in still good shape, I'll leave those in there and I won't have to deal with that busted up, dented circle. But yeah, that one right there, definitely dented. The one right there on the bottom. All right, so the kit for this is, so this goes on like this, and this bearing that I have pushed out is for the shock. It's where the shock bolt's on. And the original Beta pieces is a caged roller bearing. These metal seals, and then these collars, and a sleeve that goes into the caged roller bearing. And the Moose Racing replacement kit is going to use these pieces, the rubber seals, a spherical bearing, and these outer pieces that go in there. A little different, but this caged roller bearing is freaking dry. There's no grease at all in there. It won't roll. I mean, I suppose I could lube it up and it would probably work. I could put it back in there, but I'm going to go with the new piece. It's a good thing Jerry bought the whole kit because there's a lot of stuff, and I still got these other two to dig into yet. So anyway, we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so this is what happens when you don't grease these things. So that's the one that was rusted and the one that was bad. And I've already had one of the roller pins fall out of there. And I don't know if you can see down in there, but it's just plain rusted away. So we'll get that one out of there. It looks like they put 2 bearings in there. So I'll have to look and see what, I mean, that's 2 bearings pressed in up against one another, unless this is a real long roller bearing here. So this could go in place of that, which is what I think they want in this kit. But yeah, that's just plain shot. So all right, got it out of there. Had to heat it up and bang on it with a sledgehammer and a properly sized socket to get it out of there. It was messed up, and you can see it completely rusted away, just garbage. And so this bearing that they've got here, that's the replacement. So yeah, anyway, what a freaking disaster. Jerry, you got to do maintenance on this stuff. Can't let it just sit forever.
Okay.
Okay, I got everything replaced. I was able to reuse the bottom bearings and bushing and seals. I just left them in there because those are the ones that are dented and would be, you know, a challenge to knock out and put new ones in. So those got reused and they were fine. The one for the shock was the spherical bearing, and I replaced it because it was dried out and pretty much shot. It was a caged roller, and I replaced it with a spherical bearing. And then this top one, which was the most rusted out, I had to heat up the link and basically drive the shit out of it with a sledgehammer and a socket that fit. But I got the new one in there, and we should be in good shape. The only problem is I've got to get a new bolt, because that bolt is shot. So we'll run down to Ace, see if I can't find a good enough replacement bolt. It's gonna have to be a grade 8 bolt. It can't be something cheesy. And see if we can't fix that. So that's the next project. All right, so she's all back together. I put it back exactly the way it was, but I think the chain might be a little too tight. I'll find out what the adjustment's supposed to be on that and figure out if it needs to be looser. Because if it's too tight, that could be causing the rear end not to work quite right either. But got it all back together. All the pieces on, and no more wobble on the rear end. I had to go buy a bolt down at Ace Hardware, and this bolt's a bit bigger than the original it's the same size. It's a 12 millimeter diameter and 125 pitch thread, which is fine thread for a metric bolt. But this head is a 17, no, actually a 19, whereas the original one was a 13. And I put a stack of washers on here because the original bolt was like 95 millimeters in length, and this one's 100, so it's a little bit too long. Actually, this one's 110, so it's a little bit too long. The 100 that I could have got, the part that was shouldered was not long enough, in my opinion, to go across the bearing area. So that bolt's a little bit long, but shouldn't be an issue. If you look up underneath here, you can see it sticking out right here, but there's no way the chain's going to hit that. And if we had to, we can cut that bolt off. But everything was Loctited. We got the kickstand on. That was a chore, but I got it. And hopefully he won't have any more issues with his kickstand breaking. Anyway, all done.